Hello,
Another
hello, people.
another
Beautiful people
amazing
of the
week.
world. What's that?
Another amazing week. Another celebration.
Another amazing week is for sure. All right, welcome back to our codependency course, our little intro codependency course. We're very excited for you to be here tonight, wherever you are in the world. I am in San Diego, California, and my beautiful co-host is in,
Australia.
that's right,
Yay.
prepared for Brisbane, Australia, San Diego. It's like the closest you can be around the world, but just all the way across the ocean. So like here's where I live and here's where you live. It's a straight shot. But that's all right because we are cosmically connected and we
That's
are here to spread love and light to the world. So thank you for joining us tonight. I'm really excited about this one because I feel like, I mean, babe, what do you think? I think the 6A's is probably the most impactful part of codependency work.
yeah, I feel it really like puts things into perspective as to what happened when we were smaller, when we were little.
Exactly. And for those of you that are just joining us, this is our course on codependency. It's not a full course, obviously, but it's an intro to our course in codependency. We're
Breaking
both
up with
personal development
codependency.
coaches. Wait, what?
Breaking up with codependency.
That's right. We are breaking up with codependency. Yes.
Yeah.
There we go. Ciao, ciao. See you later. See you later, codependency. We have no time for that in our world, right?
Not
Seriously.
anymore, not anymore.
Not anymore. But yes, codependency does start at a very early age, and it is always by the people that you were raised by, you know? So we're not putting blame on parents, but what we are doing is saying, hey, there are some things that you probably know that you didn't get, or some things maybe that you didn't get enough of as a child growing up that may be affecting you now. And if you're wondering what those things are, we're going to kind of go over some today that are most of the possible culprits in some of these situations. So let's jump right in, babies. Okay, so let's go over the 6A's first, right? We have affection, acceptance, attention, affiliation, approval, and abilities. So how this looks as a child, right? So the first one, affection, pretty self-explanatory. You know, as a child growing up, did you get enough hugs, kisses, um, things like that? You know, appropriate affection. You know, a lot of times we'll see this a lot in teenage years, especially in female population when they start to seek outside validation from boys, right? And it also goes boys to girls as well, but specifically we see the affection part typically from a girl's perspective more, you know what I mean? Where maybe they don't necessarily like things about themselves, and so that attention or that affection, excuse me, will really kind of validate them and make them feel like give them worth, right? And obviously both of us see this a lot in the children that we work with. So that's affection. Next is acceptance. So a lot of people ask, what's the difference between acceptance and approval? So I'll say this really easy. Acceptance is that it's okay to be exactly who you are. It's that simple. So if you have, like, if you were really good at math, then you know what? Then we don't need to push you to be a football player, right? If you are really good at football, we don't necessarily need to push you to be a math student, if that makes sense, you know? And obviously you want to be balanced in as many things as you can, but acceptance is actually the parent realizing what their child is good at and then really fostering that, right? Whatever that looks like. If they're good at art, then buying them art supplies, you know, not just buying them soccer ball and say, well, don't sit inside all day, go out and play, you know, if that's not what they want to do, right? And approval, just to be on the other side, is the fact of it. So if acceptance is it's okay that you are the way you are, approval is the fact of that you are okay in the world. Meaning that if anybody tells you that just because you're a good football player, you're a dumb jock, or if you're really good at math, that you're a nerd, that's the parent's job is to say the approval part is no, you are a beautiful human being. Don't put labels on yourself, right? Because this is one thing that we really see also when we get to the high school level is that you take on a title that defines you, even though it's a very small part of you. Maybe you're a jock, or you're a nerd, or you're a geek, or you're popular, or you're a cheerleader, or you know, whatever that looks like that you are, and that's how you're branded in school, and that literally defines your entire identity.
Mm.
And so it's like, if you have a negative connotation around that, say if you're a geek, and you know what, here's the thing, Bill Gates is a geek. Now who's laughing? Now who's laughing, right? But at the time, I'm sure he got bullied by people that probably, you know, I don't know, whatever group he got bullied by, or maybe he didn't, I don't know. But I'm just saying, and this is the job of the parents to say, hey, you know what, doesn't matter what these kids think or what they're saying to you now, like, you are good. And it's the parents' job to reinforce that by saying, hey, you are actually really smart, not just, oh, you're not a geek, when they know he's a geek. Maybe a geek, whatever it is, right? It's just a title. But the
Mm.
point is that that's the approval part. Hey, it doesn't matter because you're really smart and you're going to do big things in the world, right? So those are the top three. Then we get attention. So the difference, like, attention is another one, right? Which is important because it goes along with acceptance and approval, but it differs in this way. And that is attention is one-on-one time with the child. That is key, right? So it doesn't matter if you're putting together a puzzle, if you're playing baseball in the yard, if you are, you know, reading a book, whatever that is, but it's like so that the child knows you are actually paying attention to them, right? And this gets a bit difficult, honestly, for any families that have more than two children, or even more than one child a lot of times, right? Because if you have three or four or five children, it's really hard if you only have two parents to get time with each child separately without either the other one's butting in, or, you know, like something coming up, an emergency or some kind of distraction to take away from that time. So this is one of the things we see in bigger families that becomes a challenge. And also what becomes a challenge in bigger families is that then the oldest child gets made a parent way before their time to take care of the younger ones because the parents don't have time. So attention is really, really important. Affiliation. So affiliation differs in this way, and that is that affiliation is the actual acceptance that you are part of something. So it's the parent's vocal expression to say, hey, like for you, I would say, oh, my daughter Amanda, she is amazing, right? That would be like, she's the best soccer player our family has ever had, right? So it lets the child know, like, hey, not only are you part of this family, but your contribution is top notch, right? Like your contribution is so appreciated. That's what we call with affiliation, right? So it's being part of the family unit, but also being acknowledged as part of the family unit where you are different, unique, special, and appreciated, right? Kind of ties them all together. And then the last one is ability. And so ability, this is the one where we really kind of run into a lot of troubles with a lot of kids because sometimes the ability of the child is hindered by the parent's financial status. Let's just be honest. So if the child is like a really great football player, but he's growing up in a family with this, I see this one a lot myself, but it's like if the child's growing up and he's a really good athlete, but he has a single mother who's barely can afford to pay the rent and get the groceries. There's not money to pay for him to travel, be on one of the travel teams. You know what I mean? It costs thousands of dollars, and so he doesn't get the same opportunities as maybe other kids that, you know, have that financial means. Which is it's a tough one to see, you know, because
Mm.
then, you know, and unfortunately this is also really where we see as a teenager the kids start to go astray, right? Because typically in middle school or even the first part of their high school years, they're in athletics, they're into sports, they're doing great. And then they get to high school and it starts to cost money, and it starts to cost big money. And if you have a single parent that can't afford to increase that type of money, then what do? Well, you start hanging out with the other kids that don't have money, or you start hanging out with the other kids that aren't into sports and they're getting into mischief, or, you know, whatever stuff they're getting into. And we see this all the time. And then you start, you know, getting into maybe some alcohol or drug experimentation, or you start getting into toxic relationships with females, or males to females, females to males, whatever that looks like. You know, where your whole world just becomes fixated on that one person because you feel like nobody else cares about you, right?
Yeah.
And really, it was two teenagers. So anyway, one thing I do want to say about these 6A's besides that is that one of the best ways to really look and see where this is an hindrance in your life is to take a love language test, because typically whatever your love language is what you didn't receive as a child. So if your love language is quality time, then that means that you didn't really receive a lot of this one-on-one attention from your parent growing up. And maybe it's because the parents were working. That happens a lot. It's not their fault. Once again, we're not making this out to be the parent's fault. We're just saying this might be the way you act, the way that you act, if you want to change some things in your life to move forward and actually achieve the things you want to achieve, right? Another one that we see, obviously, is physical touch, right? That's another love language. And so if you didn't get enough affection growing up, then of course physical touch is going to be your go-to, right? Because it's like that's how you feel validated, is by getting hugs, kisses, like whatever that looks like in a relationship, right? So acts of service, same thing. If your love language is acts of service, that could be because you had to grow up a lot quicker to take care of your younger siblings. And so like you had to do all the cooking, the cleaning, the washing, whatever that was. And so you love it now when somebody comes along and says, hey, I'll make you dinner. Like, oh, seriously? Like, oh, that'd be great, because I've done it for 10 years of my life every single day. So anyway, just some things to go through, with the 6A's, and then also how that applies to codependency, but also how that can really apply to your love language and the relationships that you're in as an adult. Amanda, what would you say was like one of the ones growing up as a kid? Because I know you played sports, and I know both your parents worked, and you had a lot of stuff. What do you say was probably one of the 6A's that you can relate to that you didn't get enough of as a child that you started to understand doing this work as an adult?
Yeah. Definitely affection and attention were the ones that came out for me, and yeah, the quality time. So that is my love language, quality time and personal touch, because of that reason. So it ties in perfect. And yeah, like my parents were busy. They were trying to create life so we could have a better life, but then on the flip side, it's like that attention wasn't there, that one-on-one attention wasn't there. And then my brother came along, and then it even was like, eh, what
Yeah.
about me? Hey, I still exist. And then it just keeps going. And then yeah, a lot of my learning was around attention seeking as I went through my relationships. And um, yeah, it was just really, I had to learn some hard lessons about attention seeking, because obviously this is where it came from. Was that I just wanted attention, be like, hey, what about me? And
Yeah.
also the affection, like, I just love a cuddle, don't I, babies?
Yes, you do, babies. You are a good smuggler.
Yeah, so that's where that came about.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. And that's really what this course is all about, is the ability to see those things and not just, because a lot of times, if you don't know what this means, this could translate to you being needy, right? Like, if you've ever been in a relationship with somebody else and they're like, oh, you're so needy. You're always clingy. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, just leave me alone. Like, because sometimes, some people, they're not affectionate type people. And if you were starved for affection growing up, and then that's your love language, it can alter a relationship, you know what I mean? Because the person's all like, you're so needy, just get away. Like, I'll give you a hug later, whatever, right? And that can be a big challenge, right?
Yeah,
So,
sure.
you know, that one, and also, like you said, the approval. I mean, that's the big one, right? Because if you do not get your parents' approval for being you, not that we're not saying, once again, it's not that the parents were like, oh, that was a good job or something, but if they didn't actually really hammer home or say like, hey, this is great, you're doing this, and we approve this and this and that, then, then you seek other people's approval, a boss, a relationship, any type of friendships. It's like that's the basis of codependency, right? Is like being validated by other people in order to feel okay about yourself. And that's really where that one comes from, the approval. So anyway, we are really excited to launch this codependency, breaking up with codependency course. And if you have watched any of these videos, or if you're watching this one now and you have some more questions, you would love to hear more about our course, you would love to enroll in our course, we would love to be able to assist you in that. So please leave us a message, a DM, or anything else that you want to do to get a hold of us. We are easily accessible on many platforms. So anyway, we thank you all for tuning in. We love having you every week. Next week, we will we're gonna do some cool stuff next week, but you know what I mean, we're gonna look at the I haven't decided yet. You know what, I'm gonna leave it open. I have about 3 or 4 things to choose from, and I'm gonna see which one is most relevant. So
Yes,
but
perfect.
it will probably be around the geneogram, right? So like the family dynamic, what does it look like from generation to generation of family? because I feel like that's a good follow up to the 6A's, right? If you had a parent that wasn't very affectionate towards you, I bet if we looked at their parents weren't very affectionate towards them, because a lot of this stuff really comes down all the way down the wire. You know what I mean? You'll see 4 generations coming back of dads that never hugged their kids because they were never hugged, and that creates a big rift. So these days, not so much. I would say like in the last 10, 20 years, that dynamic has kind of changed, because honestly, it's changed because we don't have any more father figures that have come back from war, right? So like that ended about 20 years ago. I mean, we had some conflicts, Afghanistan, Iraq, things like that, but we haven't had a full-fledged world war. So when World War I, World War II, around the world, that was kind of the last generation of grandfathers and fathers, you know, was up to about 20 years ago. And now we're starting to see a new type of father emerge, um, and also a new type of mother. So we'll probably talk about that next week.
Sounds good. Sounds perfect.
Yes.
All right,
All right.
people. Much love.
Much love. Much love.
Bye.